thank you. My name is Karl Dakin. I'm one of the people that helped put together today's conference, and I want to express my appreciation to all of you for taking the time out of your calendar and coming here to learn more about opportunity zones, and in particular, how they may be of benefit in addressing some of the specific needs of your individual communities. We are recording the conference today, so as Janice said earlier, the slides will be available, but we will also be editing this recording and posting it up after the conference, which will include the slides as well as the video content, and that will be available to all of you and anyone else who couldn't make today's presentation. I'm going to speak on Opportunity Zone project examples. It's always hard when you're trying to do something new, when it's out of the box for the first time and you've never done one before, to figure out where all the pieces are, how they fit together, what the process should be, and then trying to execute on that in an efficient and elegant fashion. Fortunately for me, I seldom get to do projects that have never been done before. So I'm up here going to walk through this and talk to you about some of the different things that can be done to make this happen. So we're going to try to share with you different examples, which we have 3 different groups up here today who are already in motion on an Opportunity Zone project. Because of the newness of this, none of these are completed at this point in time. They're in motion. So if you're starting your own project today, there are a few steps ahead of you, but we felt that this is something that you can learn from. And also, as we go through this process, part of what we're looking to do is to capture all of this information, put it into basically a show and tell or a showcase that can be used as a do-it-yourself kit for each of the individual communities. So that will be an ongoing activity taking place where each of these particular projects will be showcased in that catalog. So there are all kinds of opportunities that can be addressed within a community, and I'm going to go down by what I call individual issues that may take place within a community. And to me, from a private economic development standpoint, I always like to focus on jobs first, and knowing that there are enough jobs in the community, there are wages being paid, then we can start attacking a lot of the other issues as we go along. But each of you in your communities may find that an investment in a local property, in a local business, is going to either allow business to start or to grow. And there are multiple businesses now in Colorado who are all coming up to the starting line, looking at Opportunity Zone funding and trying to figure out how to gain access to that. As a community, one of the things you can do is you can assist them in that endeavor. And then, as is going to be talked a bit more about in the next program on this session, is we're going to talk about community prospectuses and sharing the word on all the different businesses and property opportunities that are in your backyard, and putting that together collectively as a prospectus to promote your community. And so if you have a business who's thinking about doing this, please reach out to them and offer whatever assistance you can, and then collectively put together one of those prospectuses. Housing is something that every community I've talked to, not only in Colorado but across the United States, is considering a primary problem. Even if you have the jobs, if there's no place to put the workers, if the inventory is too low. So we're looking at all the usual forms, plus we're looking at some new funding and financing forms in equity share to make that happen. And we expect that most communities are going to want to look at housing as at least one of the components. Yet another one is training. As we see the change in technology today and new jobs being created that didn't exist yesterday, invariably you're going to need to figure out how to get somebody up to speed who's either a new entry into the workforce market, or it's somebody who's transitioning from a job that's become obsoleted. So we're looking at all forms of skills training and rapid training to accommodate that. Then yet another place is local food, and one of our examples today has a local food component, and there are some other ones in the community that are being worked on. This is an example of a project that is under discussion at Camp George West out in Golden to create a multiple complex that includes both housing and local food production and specialty crop production. We look at transportation, again, in a small community, certain communities, just getting to and from work or to and from the store is its own challenge. And we're anticipating that a lot of communities will be trying to figure out how to either create or supplement existing transportation. Infrastructure is also something that's under consideration. A lot of the people I'm talking to are now looking to going to net zero communities where they put in their own power grid, supply their own power, dealing with better handling of waste and recycling, getting into water treatment and processing in order to make the communities more autonomous and stand on their own 2 feet without necessarily dependency upon the local municipality, which may already be having challenges in accommodating growth. So tourism is also something here in Colorado is a big deal. Rural communities have been trying to promote agritourism. We have a lot of the known establishments. The ski resort on the western part of the state, whose name is now going to escape me now that I'm up here on the podium, that's owned by the Gart brothers. Sorry? Powderhorn, thank you. They've announced that they're going to look to opportunity zone funding for further expansion of that particular area. So you're going to see communities looking at ultra, micro, small projects that may involve a single business or property, all the way up to projects that can be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So rural communities are not to be left out. I will continually praise the state of Colorado for doing an above average, excellent job of defining the opportunity zones to take best advantage of that. And in the rural communities, about 60% of the opportunity zones in this state are located in rural areas, and they're going to be a primary tool to help some of these communities either reestablish new industries or revitalize themselves, and looking at all the other things that we've been talking about. So probably what I see is going to be most attractive, and you heard in the last panel talking about what you have to do to gain the interest and the investment of people who are investing in opportunity zones, is they're going to be looking at communities as one way of demonstrating the strength of a particular project. So if you have multiple businesses and properties all working in a complementary fashion, they're going to be more visible, and I think they're going to be perceived by the average investor to having greater strength and therefore more likelihood that you'll be able to attract the money you're looking for. So that concludes my remarks here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Mickey, who's on my far left, to come up next and provide a little background on his project, which is the Sugar Beet District that is in Fort Collins. And then Vaneesha, you'll be second. And then we'll finish with Michael as our last of these examples. Mickey, come on up.
It again starts telling the story of the sugar beeting industry, which is a really fantastic story and wonderful about community building, but there's downsides to that too. I'm a certified interpretive planner, so I like to tell the stories of history, and I'm also in the conservation business, so I like to do things well and tell and embrace the authentic story and tell it completely, because it's better than a made-up one. This is a museum down in Loveland that shows what these buildings look like when they looked great, not like the ones that are in most disrepair, likely in your communities. But they were all standard issue types of big operations. And the Sugar Beet District, these are part of the slides we used with my development partner, Kubala Washatko Architects. And but it's a 50-acre site that we're working on in downtown Fort Collins, vertical urban farming. We'll have a culinary school, which Fort Collins needs to be able to educate the cooking careers. It has infrastructure. If you look at those little white boxes around there, that's 13 10 by 10 concrete vaults that the city put in the 80s in an attempt to attract Budweiser to be downtown. Instead, they went out to the interstate and did it. But we have capacity for this site at an industrial level. We also, while I was sitting idle working out the details of this new urban troubled site, I helped create policy in the city for Planned Development Overlay District. So I'm the only pilot program in this program that has no zoning restrictions. Today, if you have a piece of property and you want to put residents and you want to put a grocery store, you can't put grocery stores in a residential community, which is where they're needed. So everybody has to get in their cars to go get groceries. So the city was very visionary in so many ways, and so they came up with a thing called Preliminary Development Overlay District. I've also been a target employment area through a program called EB5. If you've ever heard anything about EB5, Employment-Based Immigration Fifth Preference. Wonderful program, bipartisan supported since '92. It's fantastic in that it gets you access to capital as part of your capital stack that helps with an immigration program for families looking to move or live in America, send their wealth and business savvy to America so that it's well protected instead of the countries that they don't always gain the same benefits that we do. Looks like some of my letters have moved around, but that's all right. I'm working with Karl here on the... That's all right. But this is just a map indicating that we are in an opportunity zone designation. The Praxis Marketplace, like I said, it bought Urban Organics today. This is the Milwaukee Public Market that I spoke about in Milwaukee. It's got 42 vendors that are local vendors. And our Praxis Marketplace, now In City Farms that owns Urban Organics, this guy's specialty, Glenn Ford, was a PepsiCo executive for 15 years, pushing junk food around the world. So now he's trying to make amends for his sins. And so he wants to offer the community vegetables and the local food economy, and he's great at helping people brand their product. This is the inside of the Milwaukee Public Market of pictures that I took, and it's downtown 3rd Ward of Milwaukee, right downtown, an infill site. But when you design the places as well, the outside seating areas should be important and critical and inviting to the public. So our goal is to create very cool stuff. This is what vertical urban farming looks like if you haven't seen it. And if you've ever heard of a guy named Will Allen, he won the MacArthur Genius Award in 2001 for Growing Powers Urban Farms. It was teaching underprivileged kids how to grow vegetables. First, how to identify what a tomato looks like. You know, a lot of people, we know what vegetables look like. A lot of people don't have a clue what they look like, where they come from. So he's been creating these little pocket garden areas, and our development partner they design all their structures now. Karl Dakin is going to be the entrepreneur for the indoor hops, hemp and hops for our project, which is fantastic because we've been working with conversations with CSU and the brewing district so they can benefit for our works. The hotel will do, I love architecture that is brick and glass, which is what most of Sugar Beet District projects look like. And in this case, I see also the potential to meld the old architectural style, like the brick and glass and steel, in with the new technology of a more net zero type of building potential. This is, of course, just some loves that I have from Milwaukee. But these are creative opportunities that have done well. This is a funky candy company in La Crosse, Wisconsin. This is now the Charmant Boutique Hotel. So these are the kinds of things, taking old buildings. If you have some in your community, this is a great opportunity to use the opportunity zone designation and funding to help improve those. Another hotel called the Iron Horse in Milwaukee that our partners did. Our brewery that we're working on, they designed the Lakefront Brewery down in Milwaukee as well. And then we're also going to incorporate. I've been on several boards and commissions for affordable housing. And so and plus I have 3 millennial kids. They don't want what their daddies wanted. They want small cottages. And so I really see a potential market for this, where we'll create 800 to 1,100 square foot little cottages grouped around a green court and incorporate all the things that are important to the youth. And that's my presentation. I didn't just mess that up, but that's it.
All right, that's loud. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vaneesha Dutra, and I am the president of Brown Equity Properties, which is one in a series of funds that fall under our umbrella of a larger fund, which is our Opportunity Zone Fund. That Opportunity Zone Fund is called the Brown Equity Properties Opportunity Fund, and we are headquartered in Houston, Texas. However, our footprint is nationwide. And we are also organized as a public benefit company, which simply means that we are held to a higher standard in our commitment to deploying capital that not only creates benefits to the communities that we deploy capital within, but also a sustainable benefit. The emphasis there being on a sustainable benefit to the communities that we deploy capital in. All right. Let's see, where do we want to go? I'm going to try to move pretty quickly here. We're running short on time. Our mission is pretty simple. We are a public benefit company, which means we offer a social impact, and we acquire and renovate properties within communities of color throughout the nation. We do so by deploying capital to smaller, so our Opportunity Zone Fund deploys capital to smaller, what we call hyper-local funds. These hyperlocal funds deploy capital within specific neighborhoods, which allow us to create that sustainable benefit within that community. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how we do that and what our benefit is. Another thing I want to make sure I point out, I give speeches all over the place about Opportunity Zone funds and our fund in particular, and people seem to be really confused. I have a finance background, I come from the investment banking world, and people seem to be really confused when you say you're doing something good and you make money. It just, they think that can't happen. I'm here to tell you that it can, and we're here to do it. And many of you in this room as well. All right, so again, our mission is to improve the financial well-being and general outcomes of the residents within the communities that we serve, and also earn our investors very competitive return on their capital. All right, so why do we exist? Karl covered some of this already. There are many problems within communities of color, many. I'll just quickly run through a few. Affordable housing. This is not unique to Denver. It is a nationwide issue, and particularly within communities of color. And so we attempt to tackle that issue. We deploy capital in many communities where the housing is run down. And this is in many areas where people want to live, because a lot of these inner city neighborhoods are very close to jobs. It's becoming in fashion to get closer to downtown. Millennials want to be closer to downtown. They want to be closer to their job and bars and sports activities. So we attack affordable housing by going into these communities, buying properties that are in significant disrepair, repairing them. I'm going to jump around here. We create incentivize job creation within these communities. If you are an investor in our fund, then you get the right of first refusal for two things. One, to place a bid on the properties that we are renovating. And this is really important. So we are in a city that is deploying billions of dollars in capital. There's construction going on, big construction projects going on everywhere around this city. And there's one major issue. I'm in meeting after meeting after meeting. Minority contractors are not getting in on many of these bids. It is a significant problem. And so we help to combat that issue because our buy-in in these communities, we go into the communities and say, hey, we're here. It is in your best interest to invest with us. So we not only attract accredited investors, but we have a heavy pull. A lot of our capital comes from non-accredited investors, and non-accredited investors from within that community. So we say, hey, you should be an investor in this fund, because as an investor in this fund, you get what's called the right of first refusal. All investors in the fund get the first opportunity to bid on the renovation of the projects within our fund. In addition to that, those that invest in the fund get the right of first refusal to buy the properties that we renovate. So this is what we're doing. We're going into communities of color, incentivizing minorities. We take all money's green, so we take all money. But we are certainly incentivizing minorities to buy into their own communities by investing in our funds because it is in their best interest to do so. All right, and as such, they have the opportunity to increase the low home ownership rate within communities of color that we see across the country. What do we know about home ownership? We know that home ownership is one of the major catalysts to wealth creation for Americans, period. And actually throughout the world, if you look at the millionaires and multimillionaire and billionaires created throughout the world, and not just domestically, it is through real estate. So we also have an education component. Once a month, while we're within these communities, we go and I personally go in and we hold community education forums where we are educating communities about, one, jobs that are, some of these kids in these communities don't see college as an option. And they don't know what else to do. So if we have contractors of color in their block working, small business owners, putting in windows, putting in siding, making a living, we expose them to that as well. So we have multiple components. I'm gonna try to wrap up here. Affordable housing, we address it. Low home ownership rates, again, the right of first refusal. If you're an investor in the property, not only do we give you the right to, before we hit market, to purchase these properties that we've renovated, you do so in your own community. And we also have a down payment assistance program. Trust me, we make our investors money. But instead of management keeping a significant chunk of it, we choose, as a social benefit corporation, to pass that on to help increase the home ownership rates within these communities that we are serving. Again, that hits the sizable wealth gap that we see between various cultures within the United States. If you look at the wealth gap, and if you've studied these statistics for African Americans, you know that African Americans within short order are on schedule to have a zero or negative net worth in the next 5 years. There's scary, scary statistics, and while other communities are rising, something must be done. So again, you can earn your investors a return and have a positive impact on communities if you so choose to do so. All right, so again, we spoke on job creation. We employ from the community. We are inclusive. We look at female contractors. We look at contractors of color. All must be qualified, clearly, but we are inclusive in our job creation efforts. All right, and ultimately all of this leads to community stabilization. All right, so what's the solution? For us, it's opportunity zone funds. We are able through opportunity zones to take in capital in this new creative way. It's nothing we've seen before. We can really go into these communities and get their buy-in and say, hey, you don't have to be an angel investor, you don't have to be this big wig, you don't need millions of dollars to buy real estate. You too can be a part of it. We teach them that they can start somewhere. They must indeed start somewhere. And if you're going to start somewhere, why not within your own community? So again, Opportunity Zone Funds, an amazing vehicle. We're able to do amazing things. Our first fund, the Brown Equity Properties Fund, we're already actually purchasing, Karl, we've already purchased 2 properties, and we are well underway. We are super excited about what we're doing. So again, our Opportunity Zone Fund is the Brown Equity Partners Opportunity Fund. Our up and running fund, you can visit us at brownequityproperties.com. Again, I am Vaneesha Dutra, and this is our email address. If you have any questions, I will be around, or you can reach out to me later on. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
So I've been working with Vaneesha on this project. In the short amount of time that we're allotted, she's actually doing some cool things with capital stacks and both local investment crowdfunding to hold money within the community so that any of the profits that are generated here, some will still go to investors who can come from across the United States, but it's amplifying and leveraging local investment dollars as well, which is a big issue here as we try to get the biggest impact possible from this type of program. So Michael Graham will be our next speaker. He's going to talk about the Avelon project, and as soon as it loads up here, Mike will speak. And I'm looking forward to this presentation since it's the only one I haven't had a chance to see yet. So, Michael, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm really glad to be here in Aurora, Colorado at a hotel I stay very often, and it's good to see City Council from Aurora and other friends, and hello, Aurora. We are investing in Aurora. We were investing in Aurora before QOZ program came out. We've invested in Aurora since 2000, and Aurora's been very good to us as a company. Our current project in Aurora is 287-acre mixed-use master plan community, and it is in the process of seeking an FDB approval through the City of Aurora. I'd like to speak about components of that master plan, and then come back to the OZ opportunity. All right, so as I said, it's 287 acres. Who knows where the new Gaylord Marriott Hotel is? We're just a third, about half a mile to the east before you get onto E470, going down to 56th Avenue. We have a plan to have plus or minus 1,000 residential homes. They'll be at a price point of $250 to $450 for base price of housing. There'll be different prices, different products, about 6 or 7 products. There'll be at least 4 different builders building the product. There's 60 acres of commercial, which we are very excited about. 11 acres of multifamily. This is an older slide. There may not be that much multifamily. And we are in a qualified opportunity zone. I kind of laugh and tell people when they ask me what an opportunity zone is, I say, well, I'm glad to tell you I'm an expert. I've been on 4 panels. And that goes to say there are no experts. This is so new. So I'm constantly being intrigued, and I'm curious about the opportunity zone, the final regulations. We have formed a fund, and it's called Gravitas Fund. It's a $100 million fund. Let's see if I can get to this next slide. This describes the components of this property, of which different types of businesses located here will be retail, an office building, at least 3 hotels, restaurants, multifamily. More than likely, it'll be stacked on top of retail. The whole idea and feel is to bring a more urban feel to this part of the world instead of a subdivision process. We wanted to look new and look forward. We are, in fact, when you're building a project this large, one of the daunting challenges is thinking ahead 10 years and building out for 10 years because, you know, as smart as you think you are, the market probably proves that you made some mistakes along the way. So we try to take a lot of time with our envisioning process, with our focus groups, and with just talking to the consumers and talking to people that will be tenants in the property and seeing what they want to have. You'll see this amphitheater located in the corner. This is a similar product that's in Dallas, Texas. It's in the final phases of construction. It's on 17 acres of ground. It's comprised of an amphitheater with a retractable roof. Live Nation is running the programming, and it has a major part to do with this. There's office, there are hotels, there's parking with very low emphasis on cars throughout the project. Surface parking was built as the first element. And then in the front of the project, you can see apartments above retail. So this is about 582,000 square feet. We're using this as a model to work off of with the same architects that designed it. And it's on a corner of 64th and Piccadilly that will be one of the highest traffic corridors in this environment out there forever. The name of our fund is Gravitas. We started this year. If you need more information, you can go to gravitasfund.com. I'm anxious to hear from you or any questions you may have, and that's all I have. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. It's filling a little bit over my head because I don't have multiple millions to invest, and so I'm trying to understand, are you giving us an idea of what we can do if we have that kind of money, or how we as smaller people can invest in your already existing ventures? And I'm trying to tie it together.
Sure.
It's a little bit over my head.
Yeah, so essentially the way the Opportunity Zone funding works is there's going to be a whole series of funds. And some of them are going to be single entity captive for a single business or single property. Some of them are going to be for large scale projects of this nature. And each fund will set its own parameters on who can invest or not invest by rolling over their capital gains. So there are going to be some, like I know Vaneesha is working with, where there may be a minimum investment of $100. In other cases, there's going to be situations because of the size and scale of the project, it may not be open to non-accredited investors, and it may be set at $10 to $50 to $100,000 as a rollover. And it's going to be dependent upon each individual fund and how they're structured as to who may be able to invest in those particular funds. Yes, Walter.
Thank you. I appreciate the information being shared. Can either of you just speak to the return on investment element of this, and what are investors expecting out of any or all of these projects?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a short answer, and then we're going to take questions of this nature after lunch as a breakout. But investors of all classes can invest in an Opportunity Zone fund. Everyone who invests can have their own specific criteria for what they want to get out of it. And so some of these are going to have high ROI, some are medium, and some very, very low, but still enough to be economically sustainable. And it's up to the investor to pick and choose which fund that they want to invest in that matches up with their personal criteria.
So can you just give us a percentage or some element of the range?
You may take this.
Yeah.
Let me just say quickly, we as, I think, professional investors, the property has to meet our criteria first and foremost, not the QOC aspect of it. So, for instance, in a land development deal, you'd want to have somewhere between a 15 and 20 IRR available to the investors, and a 3 or 4 times multiple. And holding on to these assets once they're built, those may not be quite the same, but that's generally the benchmark.
For Brown Equity Properties, our projected return is 10% for investors. We actually just closed our fund to new investment because we've met our investment threshold. However, we are opening another fund and should be accepting new investors in about 40 to 45 days. You can go to our website and just hit the sign up button, and you will be notified when we open our fund up to new investment.
Okay, so the next panel, come on up. Thank you all to all of you for presenting your projects.